I remember one particular night, shortly after my 31-day fast from the internet, and I had a question to ask my neighbor, okay? My neighbor in the house immediately beside me. And maybe it was because I'd gotten into the practice of not always doing stuff on my phone, but for whatever reason that evening, I decided, sort of late in the evening, 7:38, it was the middle of winter, I decided to put on my coat and bundle up two of my kids and just go to her front door to ask the question. Now, once we were in the front yard in like minus 20 degrees Celsius weather, it didn't seem like a great idea, but bear with me here. So we've got our coats on, we're chomp, 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 chomp down our, 5 front stairs, across the front yard, which is very snowy and frozen, crunch, 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 and then up her front stairs to her door, knocked on her door. She opens the door, I ask her my question, I get the answer to my question in about 30 seconds to a minute, but then we get talking. The warmth and the light from her house begin to seep out on the front patio. My kids and I gather in close and we begin talking. We begin talking about parenthood because she has 2 girls that are older than mine. We start talking about how things are going. We talk for a few minutes about parenthood, the inevitable challenge of parenthood, and then I saw it. I saw the crack in her composure. My neighbor was on the verge of tears. Things were not going well for her. My physical presence with her let it come out. Something I would have completely missed. We, as friends, as neighbors, would have completely missed if I'd just fired back a couple of quick texts. My physical presence let it come out. Now, not all of us had the luxury of unplugging the way I did for 31 days, and honestly, I do actually recommend that you do it. It was incredible, but I don't think you need to do it to start to mindfully use your technology. But we all do share a longing to find balance and peace, sanctuaries in a wired world. Dr. Reed Schuchart, a media ecology professor at Wheaton College, who is also a friend of mine, he studied under preeminent media scholar Neil Postman. He says this is Reed Schuchart. It is very difficult to step out of the immediacy, the necessity of media, and say, maybe I don't need this, because we believe we have control over their effects because we make these technologies, right? We make them, we as people. But the truth is we make our technologies and they remake us in their image and for their purposes. And their purposes, by and large, are to provide more and more and more information. And while information informs us, relationships form us. Okay, so show of hands, who can remember when the internet used to be fun? A few hands. Remember when the internet was fun? Like the first time you Googled and it was just like, it was mysterious and exciting and you could access anything in the world. And maybe the first time that you FaceTimed, right, with someone, maybe a faraway family member or friend. I've got many friends who travel for work, being able to connect with their kids where they're far away, just the mystery and excitement and joy of that. I can remember an early relationship in my 20s where, after the hugs and kisses at the end of the night, I'd go downstairs in my parents' house and I would sit by the desktop computer and I would wait. I'd wait for that inevitable email I'd get. It was like Christmas morning when that email came and I knew it was gonna come, and I would read it and I'd read it again. I'd tuck myself into bed. That was the joy and the mystery and excitement of the web when it came onto the scene. And then something happened. What happened in my own life is that it became a way to manage. I'm a fairly controlling person by nature. I like productivity. I like busyness. I like to get things done. Those people in the Canada Dry commercial, I'm the person that says success and achievement and yes, busyness is good. But if you're wired like me, going onto the internet is just another way to control and manage And for me, the joy of the web started to disappear when I was constantly trying to update my websites to make sure that I looked viable to a potential editor or client. I was on social media, and at that point, I had moved from Vancouver, so I grew up on the West Coast, and moved to Toronto, and in one fell swoop, all of my relationships were suddenly mediated in some capacity through the internet. And in short time after that move, my relationships became little more than online check-ins, scrolling my Facebook feeds and not really engaging, but just sort of looking at what people had or had not posted. So the joy of the web shifted to something different. It shifted into something that looked a little more like fear or disconnection. So it was 2012. This is kind of the breaking moment for me in my relationship with the web, what set me on the course of writing my book and doing the work that I do. I was watching a documentary on the CBC, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, about devices. It was a documentary called Our Crackberry World. And in this documentary was a scene of a priest conducting a blessing service for smartphones, okay? So I'm gonna take you into what I saw. So here was a person dressed in holy vestments, okay, like the holy clothes, calling upon the God of the universe to bless a blackberry. Okay, blessing blackberries, actual harvested food to our body's use would have been one thing, but blessing a piece of glass, metal, and plastic designed to speed our lives to the brink of exhaustion was quite another. I had a completely visceral reaction to this scene unfolding before my eyes. To me, there was something wrong with this picture. And I was already at a point where I was kind of done with the web. I wanted a break. So I ditched out on the internet for 31 days to just see what would happen, to see what kind of person I would be, to see what kind of engagement or disengagement I would have with the people around me. I did find disconnection. In fact, I had one particular friend, a colleague of mine, who said, well, I just decided that you didn't exist for 31 days because she couldn't see what I was doing online. Okay, cool, fine. I did find inconvenience. It was incredibly inconvenient for me to drive around trying to get places without Google Maps. Like, I just say that Google Maps is freaking awesome. I miss that so much. Also, as a writer, I love deadlines, and I had not filed 2 stories in time before my internet fast, and I had to save them on USB sticks and put them into envelopes and mail them through Canada Post. And one of them got lost. Email, also really awesome. But what I discovered, which way overshone the negatives of that 31 days, was peace and quiet. It was like my mind was a chalkboard that was just scrawled with images and pictures, and someone took a chalkboard brush and wiped it clean. And then, for those of you who might remember doing this, remember washing the chalkboards where you actually got the cloth wet and wrung it out and then wiped it till it was black. My mind was clear.
If I can just ask you to each take the mic and just tell us how what it is that you do sort of impacts this discussion and moves the ball forward.
Okay. Hi. What is not included in my bio, which is incredibly important and made me a little sad that it didn't show up because it was way too far down the line, is that I'm actually a mother of 3 children. And that really influences the way that I think about technology, because for me, it's not hypothetical. It's not the impacts of our technology day to day. It's not hypothetical. It is very tangible for me because I'm watching 3 little people grow up into a world where the lines between what is real and what is unreal are blurring, where there are divisions in who has what and who gets it when in terms of adopting technologies, when parents are handing their kid their first smartphone, all these questions. So I'm a writer by trade, I am an author, and I speak about sort of what it means to be human in a digital age. I'm currently working on another book about exactly that. So that's me.
If I gave you tools today, right now, all right, paintings, crayons, whatever, and I asked you to draw me a picture explaining how technology makes you feel, what would that picture be?
I love this question.
I know you would. Bam.
I'm an artist, so I'm like, and very visual. Oh man, it would be messy. It would be chaotic. There would be a lot of red. There would be a lot of black. It would be, yeah, it would look chaotic. Yeah, that's all.
Who is ultimately responsible for helping us to understand how technology is changing us and how we can sort of be the captains of our ship in understanding how to guide that without it hurting us, without it harming us? A lot of the concerns we heard are just about that, being too disconnected. And who's responsible for that? Do we talk? What's the responsibility of the tech companies? Let's start with that.
I was having coffee recently with Cherry Rose Tan. She's a 3-time founder in Canada, and she's got one of the biggest crypto companies in Canada right now. Her brother died of burnout last year, like just died of burnout. Personally, she has an incredible burnout story of basically crashing and having all of her organs shut down at the age of 24. And we were having this conversation about the founder story, the people that are starting technologies, the Mark Zuckerbergs, pre-Mark Zuckerberg, the aliveness that they feel at the start, the passion that they have for what they're creating. And she was describing it this way. She was saying, we start with aliveness and we learn fear. We learn competition. We learn grind. We learn hustle. But it starts with this seed of aliveness. And so what she's doing now is actually working one-on-one, doing work that totally does not scale, working one-on-one with founders in terms of making digital wellness pledges at the very start of their companies, working and coaching them in terms of just emotional health and wellness and understanding of them as a person so that they can lead teams that are human-centered. This is like really messy stuff. And I understand this really messy stuff because I'm a parent and I am a spouse, and I think a lot about efficiency. I love what you're doing in terms of trying to build inefficiencies and stickiness and all of these hard things into, sticky is the wrong word, because sticky means another thing in the tech industry, not sticky, but building this discomfort and challenge and making it more difficult to do things, because relationships, which give us most meaning, love, building these things into our lives is incredibly inefficient. It does not scale. It is so painful. Can I just say that being married is like the worst? Like, it's just so hard. Like, it's the best, but it is just the hardest thing. Like, it is the most inefficient work of my life.
I'm single, sorry.
It is the most, like, to be married, to be a parent is the most inefficient thing I will ever do, and it is the most important thing I will ever do.
But is it satisfying?
It is completely satisfying, absolutely.
But is it because you go through that pain that it's satisfying?
Right, exactly. And so when we're building technology for ease, when we're constantly building for efficiency, that is not the human experience. The human experience is an incredibly inefficient, uncomfortable experience. Okay. And so I guess that just opens a whole bunch of can of worms, but this is what I'm thinking.
I love that. That takes us where we need to go. Okay, thank you very much. We've become a society, and especially you being a mom and you seeing kids and how they act, where we avoid pain. We feel like, we ghost each other. We text our breakups. We don't want to feel anything. How can we get to the point, and how would you do this, where we look at the challenge that we have now, these negative feelings, and turn it into something that propels us forward? How do we convince people to embrace the pain and the friction instead of run from it? Because I think we're using technology to run from it.
Okay. I like to say, he has an answer back there.
Oh.
Oh, the microphone doesn't actually project, but I will speak louder. Yeah, it's just for recording purposes. So I like to say that facts inform us and relationships form us. And There's not a good answer to this question. Like, pain is hard. It is the thing we want to run from. It's painful for a reason, but there's something in the pain that we need to confront. And so I don't know if anyone's heard of the term, the wisdom of disturbance. When there's a disturbing thing, that there's something you have, I mean, this comes back to the ethical question. When there's something in your gut that's disturbing you, it's disturbing you for a reason. It's trying to push you to a point of change. Pretty much everyone in this room, I'm sure, is aware of Tristan Harris, with Time Well Spent. He had that disturbance when he was at Google. There was something disturbing him, and he needed to do something about it. And so I think when we run from pain, we got to look at the pain. Like, as a parent, if my kid's crying, there's a reason why he or she is crying. I need to understand what's happening there, and I need to do that same work for myself. And I think the scary thing is when parents and adults are not confronting their own pain and fear, because future generations are not going to know how to look at that pain and fear. The hardest work of my life is actually addressing all of my own garbage so that I can help my kids look at theirs and make sense of it. So this is not a technology answer from my perspective, but yeah.
Because we are living in a world where the speed and gloss of our screens often make the connection to those far away seem more interesting and urgent than the world and people right in front of us. It's happening to teens at prom, CEOs in boardrooms, and daily to you and I. These technologies tap into novelty and the very human longing for connection. We want to know what's happening, we want to connect, and we really don't want to miss out. But what has our hyperconnectivity given us? Just last week, I spoke with Women's Health magazine about the rise of FOGO, the fear of going out. Okay, so like YOLO, JOMO, yo-yo, like I'm tired of acronyms too, but just track with me for a second, is FOGO. Mental health experts are concerned by a growing number of people expressing anxiety about going out. They're citing the lack of energy to be on, or worried about what time the event might end, even calling into question whether the people that invited them really wanted them to even come to the event. It's a sort of phobia, a growing social anxiety. So it seems like now, instead of scrolling through Facebook feeds and feeling jealous or lonely, we're feeling some dread and anxiety about going out, even when we're explicitly asked. It makes sense because our online environments are controlled. The world, humans, are intrinsically unpredictable. Our computers allow us, by and large, to work and live in silos, in compartments. In rooms all over the world, we are gathered side by side in cubicles, spending the currency of our lives in front of MacBook Pros with Retina displays, iPads, and Androids. Buzzes and rings indicate messages received, interrupting thoughts, conversations, and even feelings. Neighbors are tucked indoors. Our energies, creativity, and time, perhaps the best of us, are being spent committed to screens. But I want to remind you of something crucial today. Neither you nor your users are simply brains on sticks. And here I will differ with Descartes when he said, "I think, therefore I am." You are not just a brain on a stick. You are not just a thinking thing. You are human. While our technologies have developed, the human design has shifted little. The human eye, for millennia, the human eye has remained steadfast. Its retina and ocular nerves is astounding and magnificent in its design, and truly no different than it was thousands of years ago. For millennia, human infants have preferred to look at faces that engage them with a mutual gaze. This leads to the formation in the synapses necessary for socializing and founding relationship, teaching us who to trust, how to smile, and that eyes are the indicator of where our attention lies, just like you experienced this morning looking at one another. It is said that the eye is the gateway to the soul. I seek out other eyes, and through them, we decipher the social and emotional information needed to experience empathy, to nurture, flirt, sell, converse, and make love. The process of communication involves exchange, back and forth. It's what much of our current communication is lacking. Why, when you call a friend and get their voicemail, or you post something online without an exchange of ideas, it can feel flat.